Ramy Vance, welcome back to Behind the Fiction. It seems like you were just here a week ago.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing about rapid releases. Like it just happens so quickly, and you just spend months and months and months preparing for this moment, and then it just, much like the climax of a well-paced book, it just goes.
Yes,
So
and as a
there-
reader, then you say, when's the next book? And if it's like a week from now, that's pretty exciting.
yeah, yeah.
So today we're talking about book 2 in the series, which is Late to the Party. We'll talk about the book a little bit because not everybody would have read book 1 yet. But before we came on, my wife asked me who I was going to be talking to, and I said it was Ramy, and she'd had the opportunity to meet you in Las Vegas, and she says,
That's right.
"Oh, the photobomber," and that cracked me up. And I'd like to take some of your photobomb exploits and just kind of clip them into the video here so people who are watching on the YouTube channel can see that. But when you started posting those after the 20 Books conference last year in Las Vegas, it was just every time I would see one, it would just crack me up.
Well, and you know what's hilarious about it is that's part of the reason how I got Anderle's attention was so I was sitting with Martha Carr, who knows Anderle quite well, obviously, right? And she went to take a picture with him or something. I can't quite remember how it happened, and I went on the other side and I just kind of stuck my head in, and then Martha was like, it'd be funny if you did that with everyone. And that's exactly what I did. I went to authors like I had never met before, and I was just like, do you mind if I take a picture with you? And they're like, sure. And I'm like, okay, you look at the camera, I'm going to look over here. And then they were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just having a little bit of fun. And then I just walk away. And then sure enough, I'd release the Photobomb series and I would tag them in the photos. And then they would get it, and it actually was really great icebreaker, I have to say.
Yes.
And I no spoilers, but I have a plan for this Vegas too. So.
Oh, okay. And that is the 20 Books Conference coming up in November of 2019.
Correct.
Speaking of writing and writers, you just finished up a conference in Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, to 20 Books Edinburgh. When I had met Craig Martell in Vegas, I went up to thank him for the conference and all of that stuff, and I said, it'd be great, 20 Books Edinburgh, and he said, no way. He basically like I really felt like I committed some horrible sin against him because his reaction was so viscerally negative, and then. I think maybe like 2 weeks later, there was an announcement in 20 Books. We're having a 20 Books Edinburgh, and Ramy Vance is organizing it. He didn't tell me directly. He told me through that post, and then I kind of contacted him, and I saw that post of yours, and he was like, yeah, we're doing it. Go find the venue. It's like, okay. So.
Yes, yeah. So that's the story behind the story of that conference. And this was unlike the normal 20 Books conference, which are almost exclusively about indie publishing. This had a writing component as well.
Yeah, that's right. We had a day and a half of writing at the front end so that people could kind of come early. And then we had, I think, 3.5 days at the back end, and the conference was right in the middle. And then what we did was we had gotten a whole bunch of rooms. It was like a little castle, that kind of a big manor house, where Bruce Wayne would live, basically.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. And we put each room was a different genre. So you had the urban fantasy, sci-fi, romance. We even had a little room for nonfiction, and we made sure that each room had a head. Someone who is a very big, heavy, high-end performer in that genre. Uh-huh. So, yeah, and Craig took the sci-fi room, so as an example.
Now, did you do any writing there, or were you just sort of managing and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I did a lot of editing, actually. I mostly was editing Midgard Book 3.
Okay.
So while I was at the conference.
That book is coming out. We talked about this last time, your rapid release program. It was like 1 week between 1 and 2, and then 2 weeks, I think, between 2 and 3.
Correct. That is the fingers crossed hope. We will see. We're cutting it to the wire. I think we're going to make it just fine. It's with the editor now, and so it's all about making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's, because we don't want to give a subpar book out there. If it doesn't come out in 2 weeks, it'll definitely come out in 3. But we're pretty sure 2 weeks will hit that deadline.
Okay. Well, without giving away anything that may have happened in book 1, can you tell us a little bit about book 2?
Yeah, in book 2, our hero, Robert Suzuki Fletcher, finds a book which basically tells him any story he wants it to tell. This is a very minor subplot and basically has no influence over the main part of the book, but I just thought, how cool would it be to have a book that just tells you any story, and it tells you the story you need to hear at the moment, right? So you just pick it up and it starts telling you a beautiful story. And I have given you nothing away about the book itself, so go read it just for nothing else, for that sweet little subplot.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought for a writing world and, kind of that never-ending story vibe of things, I thought that was a fun, magical item to own. Doesn't really influence the main plot line, though.
But fun. And something you can talk about in interviews about for book 2.
That's right, without giving anything away. Yeah.
What's it like writing with Michael? Because we mentioned last week you have written with other co-writers, but I'm guessing that writing with Michael is slightly different.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, so it's funny because, so first of all, he has a very kind of specific approach to character development and style and kind of, what he refers to as the beats of a story. So for me, when I typically write a book, what I will do is I'll kind of approach it from characters, which was the same with Michael. Like we started with the premise, then we built the characters. But where it varies is I will identify kind of the 5 key moments in any story. And these are kind of like the linchpin moments of a story, the driving force of the story. Whereas with Michael, he really wanted every chapter kind of organized with anywhere from 5 to 20 points. And so kind of getting into that outlining mode was a shifting of gears. The other thing that, I mean, it was really great. I mean, first of all, just Michael is, he's just a never-ending well of story ideas, right? And so you come to him with a story problem or a plot problem, and he'll have 20 fixes. And a lot of times you walk away from that conversation going, well, I don't know which one's the best one to use, because I literally have 5 things that would be awesome to do, and I'm not sure which one to go with. And then you kind of realize that all of them work, so just pick one and kind of go with it. So that's a lot of fun. But the other thing, and this was the one thing that probably was the most interesting aspect of co-authoring with someone like with Anderle, was that he's all into having fun, right? And so typically speaking, because I've been classically trained as a writer, and I spent a lot of time developing the craft, and one piece of advice you hear over and over and over again is don't put anything in the plot that doesn't, in the story that doesn't contribute to the plot. Right. And Michael will be like, is it fun? And it's like, yeah, that book is fun. Does it contribute to the plot? No, not really. Yeah, well, throw it in. Right, it's very different on that level. So
yeah, that is a lot different, and that sounds like that's where you got the magical book that you mentioned earlier. It's something that doesn't really drive the plot, but it's fun.
Yeah, exactly, and it worked, and it and because life isn't always about driving the plot, is it? So
right. So, all right, Ramy, thank you very much. I'll have links to where people can contact you in the show notes. We'll talk again in a few weeks, and at that time, we can talk about how the series is doing, because we don't know that just yet.
Excellent. I'm very excited. Take care.